there are more AK-47s in the world than all other assault rifles combined. From the hands of soldiers to revolutionaries, warlords to rebels, and even children forced into battle, one design has shaped the face of modern warfare for more than 7 decades. It's been used in over 100 countries, seen in nearly every conflict since the mid-20th century, and has appeared on national flags, in protest art, and in blockbuster films. The AK-47 is more than just a weapon. It's an idea. Simple, deadly, and enduring. But how did a gun created in secrecy inside the Soviet Union become the most recognizable firearm on Earth? To understand the story of the AK-47, we have to return to 1945. World War II had ended, but the Soviet Union lay in ruins. Entire cities were flattened, millions were dead, and the Red Army had learned hard lessons about modern warfare. Mikhail Kalashnikov was one of those soldiers, a tank commander in his early 20s. He was injured during the Battle of Bryansk and hospitalized for months. While recovering, he heard wounded soldiers complaining about their rifles, jamming in the mud, breaking in the cold, and being too complicated for the average conscript. Kalashnikov was a mechanic by nature. He grew up on a Siberian farm, tinkering with engines and tools. Without formal engineering training, he began sketching ideas for a rifle that would combine power, simplicity, and reliability. His vision was bold, a firearm that any soldier, regardless of skill or training, could use and maintain in the worst conditions imaginable. A gun that wouldn't quit even when everything else did. By 1947, after years of prototypes and trials, his design was approved by the Soviet military. The Automat Kalashnikov, Model 1947, or simply the AK-47, was born. Kalashnikov didn't see himself as a creator of death. He saw himself as a patriot, a soldier designing a tool to defend his country. But in time, that creation would grow far beyond anything he could have imagined. The AK-47's success wasn't due to complexity. It was due to the lack of it. Most Western weapons of the era prized precision and engineering perfection. The AK did the opposite. Its loose mechanical tolerances allowed dirt, sand, and debris to flow through the weapon without causing jams. Its gas piston system redirected pressure from each fired round to automatically cycle the next shot, giving it both semi-automatic and fully automatic capabilities. The rifle fired a 7.62 by 39mm cartridge, shorter than a traditional rifle round, but more powerful than a pistol's. It struck a balance between range, stopping power, and control during automatic fire. Its parts could be stripped and reassembled by touch alone, even in total darkness. The wooden stock was sturdy. The curved magazine held 30 rounds, and the entire weapon could be mass-produced using cheap materials and simple machinery. Where the M1 Garand required careful maintenance, and the German Sturmgewehr 44 was expensive to produce, the AK-47 thrived on neglect. It wasn't pretty and it wasn't surgical, but it fired again and again when others wouldn't. That simplicity became its greatest weapon. It could survive freezing Siberian winters, Saharan dust storms, and jungle humidity without complaint. It was, as one soldier later put it, the rifle that works no matter what you do to it. By the 1950s, the Soviet Union began mass-producing the AK-47 not only for its own forces but also for allied nations. Factories were set up across Eastern Europe, and blueprints were handed to satellite states. Soon, licensed and unlicensed copies appeared from China to Egypt. As Cold War tensions grew, the AK became the symbol of Soviet military aid and influence. Whenever Moscow wanted to support a movement or regime, crates of AK-47s followed. In Vietnam, the rifle became a nightmare for US forces. Viet Cong fighters armed with AKs could engage and retreat with ease. American troops quickly learned to recognize the distinctive clack-clack of its fire. In the Middle East, African liberation wars, and Latin American revolutions, the rifle appeared again and again. Always in the hands of those fighting empires, occupiers, or oppressive governments. By the 1960s, the AK-47 was everywhere.
This is the Soviet automatic Kalashnikov assault rifle, commonly referred to as the AK-47.
It was no longer just a tool of the Soviet military. It was a weapon of ideology, a symbol of resistance against the West. The rifle had become a political statement, one that crossed borders and beliefs. As one historian later said, the AK didn't spread because of communism. It spread because it worked. But no legend exists without a challenger. Across the world, the United States sought to create its own answer. A lighter, faster, more advanced rifle, the M16. Designed with aerospace materials and precision tolerances, it was everything the AK wasn't. In theory, it was superior. In practice, the story was different. When American soldiers entered Vietnam in the 1960s, they faced a brutal environment. Humidity, mud, and constant rain. The M16, with its delicate mechanics, often jammed in the middle of combat. Meanwhile, the AK-47 kept firing. Its parts were loose, its mechanism forgiving. Soldiers could bury it, rinse it, and still make it work. The M16 was a scalpel, whereas the AK-47 was a hammer. And in the unforgiving reality of war, the hammer often wins. Over time, the M16 improved, but the damage was done. The AK's reputation for unstoppable reliability was now global. The two rifles came to symbolize more than just opposing armies. They represented opposing philosophies. The M16 embodied precision, technology, and discipline. The AK embodied endurance, simplicity, and resilience. And in many parts of the world, that second philosophy felt closer to reality. The AK-47's power wasn't limited to the battlefield. It became a cultural icon. Its image appeared on the flag of Mozambique, a nation that used it to win independence. It showed up in murals, on t-shirts, and propaganda posters, and eventually in rap lyrics and video games. It was the rifle of revolution, wielded by freedom fighters and dictators alike. It could mean defiance or domination, justice or terror. Its meaning depended on who held it. The gun's global reach made it a paradox, a symbol of both oppression and liberation. For the Soviet Union, it was proof of industrial triumph. For rebels in Africa and Latin America, it was the weapon of the people. Its myth grew because it was accessible. It could be built cheaply, fired by anyone, and last decades without maintenance. Many AKs produced in the 1950s still function today. As the Cold War rolled on, the AK-47 transcended politics. It became part of human culture, instantly recognizable and instantly controversial. One historian called it the Kalashnikov paradox. a weapon of equality that also perpetuated endless violence. By the end of the 20th century, the AK-47 had become both a marvel and a menace. There were over 100 million of them in circulation, more than any other firearm in history. In many war-torn regions, an AK could be bought for less than a farm animal. Its simplicity, once a virtue, became a curse. Because anyone could use it, everyone did. It fueled civil wars, genocides, and terrorist movements. From the Middle East to Central Africa, entire generations grew up surrounded by the sound of its gunfire. The AK-47 blurred the line between freedom fighter and warlord. It armed the oppressed and empowered the oppressor. Kalashnikov lived to see this transformation. Late in his life, he expressed regret. He once said, "I sleep well. The blame is not with the designer, but with politics." But shortly before his death in 2013, he admitted in a letter that he felt personal pain knowing his invention had caused so much suffering. The weapon had outgrown its creator. It had become a force of its own, unstoppable, untraceable, and eternal. Today, nearly 80 years after its invention, the AK-47 still defines what a combat rifle should be. Its design inspired countless imitations, from the Chinese Type 56 to the American-made WASR and the modern AK-12. It's used by over 60 national armies and countless non-state groups. It remains the most recognized firearm silhouette in the world. Modern warfare has changed. Drones, cyber weapons, and precision missiles dominate headlines. Yet, the AK endures. Because wars are still fought on the ground, often by those with little training, few resources, and no backup. And for them, the AK remains the ultimate equalizer. In museums and memorials, it represents an era. In conflict zones, it's still an instrument of power. In culture, it's an icon, the once feared, admired, and misunderstood. Nearly every rifle designed since the 1950s owes something to Kalashnikov's creation. Few weapons in history have shaped humanity's conflicts and its conscience as deeply as the AK-47. Born from war, forged in ideology, immortalized in blood and culture. The AK-47 didn't just change how battles were fought, it changed who could fight them. It gave power to those who had none, and it took lives in numbers too many to count. It is, in every sense, the gun that changed the world.